Discover the incredible power of an empty mind. 5 transformative lessons to inspire your life. Mary felt the weight of her life pressing down on her as she sat on the cracked leather seat in the empty diner, the flickering neon lights outside doing little to lift her spirits. Another night of arguing kids, cold dinners, and unpaid bills loomed ahead. Each scribble of ink on paper felt like another weight added on, another expectation she couldn't meet. The dreams of being a writer drifted like a distant memory. Every time she picked up a pen, the responsibilities of motherhood crushed her creativity, leaving her with only fragments of the stories she longed to tell. One day, seeking refuge, she stepped into the aging town library, the smell of old books swirling around her like a comforting embrace. It was there she met Mr. Johnson, the wise librarian with a twinkle in his eye. He observed her, sensed her struggle. "The incredible power of an empty mind," he said, leaning into her space as if revealing a secret treasure. "It can release burdens and inspire creativity." The notion was radical to Mary, a woman who had spent years nurturing not just her children, but the expectations of friends and family. His words hung in the air, igniting a small flicker of hope within her. That night, she delved into her childhood memories and the stories of her ancestors, filling pages with visceral dreams and raw fears. But as she unraveled these buried narratives, tension grew at home. Dinner plates often went cold, eyes blinked for attention as her children argued over homework, their laughter replaced by frustrated sighs. The familiar rhythm of their lives felt disrupted, and Mary's heart clenched with guilt mixed with determination. As the shifting dynamics made her irritable at work, customers complained about her distracted service. Each grumbled complaint chipped away at her confidence, deepening her sense of inadequacy. She questioned herself. Was being a writer truly a worthy ambition when her children needed her anchor? The struggle swirled like a tempest, leaving her feeling unmoored amidst chaos. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With her heart racing, Mary entered a local writing competition, leaning into a wave of hope. When her heartfelt submission resonated, recognition swept over her like a summer storm. But success became bittersweet. Envy brewed among her friends who once supported her. Tension thickened the air, the whispers of betrayal becoming palpable, leading her to question the validity of her dreams against the backdrop of the relationships she cherished. As if the universe conspired against her newfound happiness, her ex-husband returned, demanding a role in their lives. Recollections of betrayal flooded her mind, and fear clawed at her gut. Memories of pain collided with a sliver of hope for healing. Should she allow this disruption to threaten the delicate balance she fought so hard to regain? The decision loomed like the storm clouds that gathered before a summer rain, dark and heavy with promise, yet full of uncertainty. She stared blankly at the blank page before her, her pen poised mid-air, wrestling with the question that burned in her core. Would she sacrifice her dreams for the fragile peace of family, or was there a way for her to reclaim her voice without tearing apart the fabric of their lives? The tension built within her, suffocating her thoughts as the weight of her choices pressed down, and she felt at the precipice of a revelation she feared might never materialize. Mary sat in her cluttered living room, the soft glow of her laptop illuminating her face as she scrolled through the competition entries. Every story radiated talent and passion, igniting both admiration and a gnawing sense of self-doubt within her. She cursed herself for feeling this way. She had won. Why was she allowing fear to infiltrate her mind again? Perhaps it was the echo of whispered doubts and resentful glances from her friends that still reverberated in her ears. The arrival of her ex-husband had thrown her into turmoil, evoking memories she thought she had mastered. A lingering uncertainty wound its way into her chest, a nagging reminder that despite her small victories, the darkness of her past could overshadow her breakthroughs. She absent-mindedly typed, words morphing into sentences, but they lacked the heart she yearned to convey. Suddenly, like a rush of wind through a stagnant room, clarity struck. She realized the need to confront both her fears and her ex-husband in order to protect her newfound creative freedom. Without delay, she opened a fresh document and began to write a letter to him. Each word became an anchor, connecting her to her resolve. "Dear Jake," she typed, her fingers trembling slightly, "I need you to understand something." The words flowed raw and unfiltered, addressing not just her past pain, but asserting her right to pursue a future unmarred by his demands. As the sentences unfurled on the screen, she felt a surge of empowerment. Each statement became a brushstroke reclaiming the canvas of her life. Yet the moment felt fragile, like a fragile child needing protection from a harsh world. Her phone buzzed with messages from her friends celebrating a recent collective achievement, yet they stung like wasps. Each notification was a reminder of the betrayals lurking beneath smiles, and she quickly silenced her phone, unwilling to allow their jealousy to dampen her resolve. After drafting the letter, Mary stood up, feeling the weight of her decisions pressing upon her shoulders, heavy yet bearable. She knew she needed to have a candid conversation with Jake, face to face. The notion trembled within her. The potential for conflict was daunting, but perhaps it was necessary for her liberation. With children at school and the house momentarily quiet, she played the scenes of their confrontation in her mind. The fear was palpable. What would he say? How would he respond? The anxiety threatened to consume her, but alongside it was a flicker of determination. She envisioned herself firmly standing her ground, refusing to let past grievances dictate her present. Taking a deep breath, Mary returned to the letter. She would not merely confront Jake, she intended to reclaim her narrative. The empowering truth she had unearthed during those quiet moments of writing filled her with conviction. She would assert herself not just as a mother, but as an aspiring artist deserving of space and recognition. After a moment of hesitation, she pressed send, sending the letter to Jake's email, an act that felt both liberating and terrifying. Would this step be the catalyst for the change she desperately needed? Post-sending, Mary turned her focus back to her writing. She set her sights on the future, imagining the possibilities that lay ahead. Ideas began to flow as she tapped into her newfound strength and reclaimed her voice. The narrative she crafted next wouldn't merely reflect her life. It would echo the lessons she learned about resilience in the face of adversity. But as she lost herself in her writing, her phone vibrated again, this time with a reply from Jake. Gripping the edge of her table, she hesitated, anxiety clawing at her. The words that awaited her could either shatter her burgeoning confidence or affirm her newfound sense of self. Gathering her courage, she opened the message, her pulse quickening as she read the first line. Whatever lay beyond that screen could either propel her further into the light or back into a shadow she thought she had escaped. Mary's heart pounded in her chest as she read Jake's reply. The blood rushed in her ears, drowning out the familiar sounds of her own living space. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant echo of children's laughter outside, all reduced to mere background noise in the wake of her focus on the screen. "Mary, we need to talk. Can we meet?" The simplicity of his words stung. No elaboration, no acknowledgement of everything she had poured into her letter. The implications, however, hung heavy. A face-to-face meeting brought with it both a chance for resolution and a terrifying reminder of past turmoil. She carefully placed her phone on the table, as if afraid it might explode. Anxiety twisted her stomach. Would she inform him about the sense of liberation enveloping her? Would she remind him of the space she was carving out for herself? No. Instead, she would embrace the fear swirling within her, letting it fuel her conviction. This moment was not just about discussing the terms of their shared past, it was a declaration of her commitment to the future she envisioned. Realizing the importance of her decision, she transitioned back to her writing, seeking the solace of her words. She poured herself into creating a narrative that emphasized her journey, how every hardship had been a brushstroke on her canvas. She was not just an artist, but a warrior reclaiming her narrative. With every keystroke, she fortified her spirit, reminding herself of the strength that had guided her through the darkest seasons of her life. But Mary's focus was a tether to the past. The impending confrontation loomed large in her mind as she closed her laptop. It was time to direct her energy into that meeting. She wrote down her intentions, formulating what she wanted to say and how she would assert her newfound identity. Clarity surfaced among her chaotic thoughts. She would not engage in a fight, but she would not allow herself to be silenced either. Days passed, each punctuated with small victories in writing and moments where she'd stand in front of the mirror, breaking the patterns of self-doubt. Yet, as she prepared for the meeting, fleeting doubts returned. Could she maintain her composure? What if he redirected the blame or twisted her words around? She envisioned scenarios that sent shivers down her spine, yet she flipped those bleak visions into motivations. Each imagined conflict was a rehearsal for her delivery. On the day of their meeting, she dressed carefully, choosing a vibrant red blouse that ignited confidence each time she caught sight of herself. Standing taller, she acted as the artist of her own destiny. The familiar dread returned, but it was accompanied this time by a flame of determination. She would face Jake, not as a victim of their past, but as the creator of her future. Arriving at the cafe, Mary felt her heart race. She spotted Jake sitting at a small table, his posture rigid, his face inscrutable. The room buzzed with background chatter, but she felt encased in silence. The moment had arrived. As she approached him, her palms tingled with both apprehension and purpose. The words that hung between them would either shatter her carefully built confidence or amplify it. The weight of her decision filled the air, merging with the scent of coffee and the murmur of casual conversations. Standing before him, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the truth of her newfound identity. The stakes were high, but so were the possibilities for liberation and growth. Suddenly, she became acutely aware of the power seated in her own hands. With that, the unspoken tension loomed over them, a palpable energy waiting to be transformed into possibility or conflict. "Jake," she started, her voice steady, "we need to talk." In that very instant, she understood she was not merely confronting him, she was embracing her own evolution. Whatever lay ahead would either bolster her resolve or push her even further into the light of her own becoming. But she felt ready, more than she ever had before. Outside the cafe, storm clouds gathered, mirroring the tempest of emotions brewing inside. Little did she realize, facing Jake would spark a change much larger than either of them. And as they sat across from one another, the very next words could reshape the arc of both their lives. The air thickened with tension, and Mary forced herself to focus on Jake's expression. His brow knit in unease. She recognized the uncertainty that flickered across his features. It mirrored her own inner turmoil. But this was not the time for hesitation. No, she would wield that uncertainty and turn it into an opportunity for asserting her autonomy. "Jake, I wanted to start by saying that I've been reflecting on our relationship," she began, her tone measured yet firm. The cafe buzzed around them, a stark contrast to the whirlpool of thoughts swirling in her mind. "I've come to understand what I need moving forward." There was no turning back. He folded his arms, a defensive posture. "What's that supposed to mean?" His voice, edged with confusion, cut through the air like a serrated blade. But Mary held her ground, the grounding breaths she had practiced earlier, allowing her confidence to build. "It means I'm reclaiming my life, Jake. It means I refuse to be shaped by past mistakes or by who we used to be as a couple." She saw a flash of surprise cross his face, likely stemming from the assertiveness that had always seemed dormant in their previous interactions. But this was a new Mary, one molded by reflection and experiences she had transformed into strength. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit that had often signaled his discomfort. Honestly, I don't want you to feel any obligation to explain yourself," she interjected. "What matters now is that we both find clarity." As she spoke, she felt the weight of her words anchor her in the moment. Every syllable was a declaration. She was no longer just the woman who felt lost in their shared history. She was someone who intended to step boldly into her own narrative. Mary saw him soften, the rigid lines of his posture relaxing as her words sank in. "I forgot how strong you are," he admitted, a hint of admiration undercutting his frustration. Those words landed heavily, seeping into her soul, promising validation. But rather than allowing his recognition to become her anchor, she used it as a launchpad for deeper pursuits. "Thank you for seeing that, Jake, but it's not dependent on your opinion of me." This was about reaching my own conclusion. She leaned in slightly, conveying sincerity. "I'm ready to let go of our past, but I can't do that if we don't speak honestly about what happened." The tension transformed. Mary sensed the shift. Theirs was no longer an adversarial encounter, but a necessary reckoning. Jake wanted clarity too. She could see it in his eyes. But would he reciprocate her willingness to engage in this transformative dialogue? "All right," he said, the exhalation of his breath signaling a truce. "Let's talk." Her heart fluttered as hope ignited a flicker of warmth within the cool walls of the cafe. Yet, as they delved deeper into unresolved emotions, she had to remain vigilant, prepared for moments when their old patterns could threaten to spiral them back into familiar turmoil. Mary formulated her next thought carefully. "There were times you placed conditions on my happiness, Jake, and I allowed it. I can't allow that anymore." Those words felt raw, but also liberating. As she pronounced each one, she felt shackles loosening from her spirit. Jake shifted in his seat, and for the first time, she believed it was the beginning of an authentic dialogue. Yet unsettling doubts flared within her. Could she maintain this newfound strength? Would Jake understand the gravity of her revelations? The connection, entwined with anxiety, danced just beneath the surface, daring her to question the fragility of progress. Moments passed, and they spoke in disjointed sentences, navigating through the rocky terrain of their past while sparking prospects for healing. Each tentative step they took reverberated with echoes of their shared history, but it carried a weighty consciousness. This was about discovering truth, not assigning fault. As the conversation flowed, Mary sensed a window opening, not just in their lives, but within herself. This exchange could lead her somewhere she had long envisioned but never embraced fully. The prospect of emerging liberated sent sparks of anticipation racing through her body. But as clarity began to emerge, a nervous flutter settled in her stomach. Was she truly ready for the ramifications all this honesty might entail? The shadows of their history still lurked, waiting for a chance to dissolve the light she was reclaiming. "Mary," Jake said, leaning closer, his tone softer now, "what if we take this step together?" In that moment, the question hung between them, pregnant with possibilities and fraught with uncertainty. Would taking another chance with him mean retreating into comfort, or would it expand her horizons in ways she had yet to imagine? The storm outside raged on, mirroring the tempest of choices ahead. She needed to decide. Could she embrace the future without fully severing ties with the past? This critical juncture loomed,
and how she navigated it would shape not just her relationship with Jake, but her journey towards self-empowerment. Determined, Mary held his gaze, preparing to respond with conviction. But deep within, she grappled with the knowledge that the answer was not just about their shared future. It would mark another step in her own evolution. The moment felt electric, laden with potential. As clarity surged at the precipice of her next words, she realized the time had come to define what it truly meant to move forward. Her heart raced, and on the cusp of her answer, she felt the thrill of new territory awaiting discovery. Would she embark on this uncharted journey, or would she hold fast to the familiarity of her past? Mary's heartbeat thudded a steady rhythm, a testament to the turmoil brewing inside her, as Jake's question lingered, pulsating between them. The intimacy of the cafe, once a comforting backdrop, now felt overwhelming. She wrestled with the gravity of his words, the sincerity behind them blurring her resolve. Did she dare explore a road that included Jake once more, or did she embrace the daunting freedom of self-discovery alone? The facade of calm she'd adorned slipped as refusal gnawed at her throat. "Jake, I appreciate your willingness to explore this together, but—" The uncertainty that had briefly melted away swelled back, formidable as an approaching storm. "We need to recognize the patterns that brought us here in the first place." He leaned back, visibly taken aback, arms unfolding as if to signal an openness she desperately hoped was genuine. "I didn't mean to pull you back. I want to be better." "Then be honest with me," Mary replied, her voice elevated with tension. "What does better look like for you and for us?" The volume of her words surprised even her. They seemed to echo in the air like a challenge. "It means understanding what I did wrong," Jake conceded, glancing down at his hands. "It means listening instead of reacting. I need you to believe that I can change." His gaze met hers, earnest. A swirl of emotions enveloped her. She wished to believe him, but felt the weight of their history. Change isn't an instant process, is it? It takes time, commitment. She was testing not only Jake's mettle, but her own willingness to enter this unknown. "Time, I can give," he promised, the earnestness in his tone igniting a flicker of hope within her. But was hope merely a tether to the past? Her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Could they rewrite their narrative, or would they be doomed to repeat it? Would he truly commit, or was this another layer of his charm, aimed at keeping her close? The struggle within her intensified as she thought about drawing boundaries. If she did agree to some semblance of a relationship, what guidelines would keep her from feeling trapped again? "I need more than words, Jake," she said slowly, emphasizing the importance of tangible change. "I won't sacrifice my autonomy. You need to understand that." He nodded, though a shadow flickered across his features. "I get it. This isn't just about mending fences. I need to show you I respect your independence." His admission embraced a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. Mary inhaled deeply, anchoring herself. The internal dialogue she had fought to cultivate surged within her. This was a journey of empowerment, a dialogue both with Jake and, more importantly, with herself. Every minute spent in this cafe was a testament to her resistance against settling back into the shadows of old comforts. "Let's be clear," she stated, her voice firm yet softened with determination. "If we're going to move forward, together or apart, it must be grounded in honesty. No empty promises." "What do you envision?" he asked, curiosity piquing as he leaned in again, eager for her thoughts. "Growth, for both of us. If we can mutually commit to bettering ourselves, then we might discover a renewed connection. But it must be authentic." With a moment of silence stretching between them, she could feel the air thickening, saturated with the weight of possibilities. Their past still hung ominously in the backdrop, but perhaps it could ultimately serve as a springboard rather than a weight dragging them down. "Mary," he said suddenly alert, "I want you to define what growth means to you. What's next for you, beyond us?" His question rattled her, sparking a realization that she needed this time not only to redefine her relationship with him, but also with herself. The vision of her future stretched out in front of her like a path winding into the unknown. Could she declare her aspirations without falling back into the confines of their shared history? "I need to explore who I am outside of us. This pursuit of me, it's time I invest in my passions again. Maybe art, maybe writing, just something that reignites that spark of creativity I used to have." Each word felt liberating, a declaration of intent that resonated in her chest. Jake listened intently, and for a fleeting moment his face softened with admiration. But as she concluded, an unsettling tension settled over her. Was this the turning point she sought, or were they both stepping toward the same pitfalls once more? As their conversation turned toward breaking the cycle, she felt her resolve hardening. The heat of self-discovery coursed through her, igniting possibilities she hadn't previously acknowledged. But could she commit to that journey fully? "Mary," his voice crept back into her consciousness, "this is a new beginning for us, if we choose it. Don't you see the potential?" The suggestion sent chills down her spine. Was it as simple as choosing to uplift each other into new realms, or did partnerships come with inevitably entangled struggles? The unease prickled in her throat again, that familiar trepidation. "I see it, Jake, but potential often carries the weight of expectation." And there it was, the delicate precipice of all they had touched upon. How much would she be willing to risk if it meant advancing into the uncertain terrain of her own aspirations? The clouds outside burst open, torrents cascading against the cafe windows, while Mary sunk deeper into thought. She had begun this conversation with the intention of carving her path, and yet, as the prospect of a partnership materialized like a mirage, she felt the familiar pull of doubt. What if this time could be different? Or what if it only led them deeper down a rabbit hole of familiarity? The question loomed heavily, and with it, her next action was equally crucial. "Jake, I think we need to pause for now," she asserted, determination lacing her voice. "I need time to determine if pursuing this with you aligns with my journey. I can't lose sight of what I need." His expression melted into one of understanding, but she wondered if he truly grasped the depth of her request. As he nodded, she sensed the shift in energy surrounding them, a fragile balance that could either fray or strengthen. As she stood to leave, the world outside echoed with a cacophony akin to her heart. A decision was looming on the horizon, and she needed to summon the strength buried deep within her soul. Would she be able to confront not just the relationship with Jake, but the even trickier relationship with herself? The door swung open, and the rush of frigid air stirred her spirit. With every step away from that cafe, clarity began to filter through the fog of doubt. Yet ahead lay an uncharted path, accelerated by her choices. Would she reclaim her identity amidst the storm? Or would she tentatively dip back into the shadows of shared histories? The answer drifted teasingly out of reach, tantalizingly woven with the threads of personal development, waiting to be uncovered in the next chapter of her journey. The sound of rain splattered against the pavement as Mary stepped outside, a curtain of droplets washing over the city. The chill invigorated her senses, reminding her of the rawness of change. Each rhythmic patter resonated with her burgeoning resolve. They were not just raindrops, but catalysts for her awakening. She clutched her coat tighter around herself, determined to carve a path of clarity amidst the chaos swirling in her mind. In the hours following her conversation with Jake, she felt an electric pulse of motivation coursing through her veins, displacing the doubt that once weighed her down. The cafe had transformed from a place of comfort to a stage where she had performed her own revolution. She had asserted her voice, demanding authenticity and growth, not only from Jake, but from herself. That realization struck her like thunder, leaving her breathless but fiercely alive. Walking through the streets, Mary realized it was imperative to break the cycle of regret and sadness. There was much to explore beyond the whirlwind of emotions threatening to envelop her. Who was she if not defined by her past relationships? She paused for a moment, gazing at a gallery window displaying vibrant paintings. Art, she whispered to herself, the word a lighthouse guiding her back to a long-forgotten passion. This was the spark she craved, the vibrant brushstrokes, hazy layers, and boundless creativity waiting to be unleashed. Mary stepped inside, brushing past the barriers of self-doubt. The familiar sense of paint and canvas stirred memories of endless evenings spent in her studio, the vibrant colors splashing back to life. She had allowed life's demands to sweep her creativity away, yet as she wandered from piece to, she felt a resurgence of hope. Each artwork seemed to call her back, as if saying, "You are still here. Now embrace it." In that gallery, she contemplated taking a class, rekindling the fervor that once ignited her spirit. But another layer nagged at her consciousness, the fear of not being enough. She had glimpsed the path towards self-discovery, yet would she falter as she ventured down it? What if this awakening only highlighted her inadequacies? These tight questions echoed in her mind, clamoring for a response. But as Mary inspected a canvas for another moment, she remembered the importance of facing fears, of embracing imperfection as part of the journey. Just standing there, absorbing the colors and strokes before her, she realized that every artist grapples with self-doubt. It was not a barrier to be avoided, but a companion to learn from. Determined not to let fear steal her resolve, she pulled out her phone, fingers dancing over the keyboard. Researching local art classes ignited a fire within her, sparking excitement. Yet in the midst of her pursuit for joy, a voice whispered reminders of Jake, his desire for connection, his interest in her growth. Could she navigate this chapter of her life without gravitating back toward the familiar complexities of an emotionally charged bond? Those lingering questions demanded answers. Mary needed clarity, and she wanted to avoid the shadows of the past overshadowing her aspirations. Putting her phone away, she resolved to journal her thoughts. Writing had always been a refuge, a way to untangle the web of confusion obscuring her vision. She found a nearby cafe, light pouring through large windows, as she nestled into a quiet corner, notebook in hand. With each stroke of her pen, she felt the weight of her self-imposed constraints lifting. Bursting forth from her hand were confessions, hopes, and plans, a map of her desires unfolding. Yet beneath the ink and paper lay uncertainty. Glancing outside, her focus caught on the shifting clouds again. Storm or sun, every day was a cycle of choice. The distance from Jake lingered like a cloud of doubt, threatening to drift back into her life without warning. What would happen when he reached out again? Would she have the courage to hold firm against old patterns? She realized these questions would shape her journey ahead. The final words she penned that day resonated with new depth. I am reclaiming my identity. I am the artist of my own life. As she closed her notebook, a smile quirked onto her lips. Progress felt electric, yet uncertainty still lingered, taunting her with its intoxicating grasp. The rain had begun to thin, sunlight streaming through, revealing the vibrancy of the city. The light illuminated her path, highlighting the adventure that lay ahead as she crossed the threshold between her past and future. Yet the haunting echo of Jake's influence lingered. What if? The moment of truth approached closer, a crossroads imbued with lingering questions and potential answers. Were the lessons of her past powerful enough to guide her into a future echoing with authenticity? In the gleaming transition between her old life and the uncharted terrain of aspiration, Mary found strength and uncertainty hand in hand, pushing her toward a decisive confrontation. With her heart racing, she paused for a moment, contemplating her next steps with a fragile confidence that delicately balanced on the edge of rebirth.
Would she summon the courage to embrace her artistic spirit and personal growth while navigating the complexities of a past she hoped to overcome? As the last raindrops fell, a tempest of emotions brewed beneath the surface, hinting that perhaps the time had come to face her fears once and for all. Would she forge ahead with clarity, or would Jake's shadow reclaim its hold on her burgeoning identity? The cafe buzzed with life, clinking cups and murmured conversations, creating an energizing backdrop to Mary's introspection. She took a deep breath, allowing the aromatic coffee to invigorate her further as her eyes scanned the pages. Clarity began to crystallize within her thoughts. The act of writing had acted like a funnel, siphoning the chaos from her mind and leaving behind only the essence of what truly mattered, her dreams. Determined to cultivate her artistic aspirations, she reluctantly pushed aside the lingering thoughts of Jake. Those thoughts, while familiar, were a comfort that had begun to feel suffocating. In the margins of her journal, she noted down classes available that evening, aware that each plan represented a step away from the fears that had so long restrained her. With her phone propped up on the table, Mary's fingers tapped out another search. But instead of classes this time, she found herself looking at art exhibitions, upcoming showcases in the city, and even the profiles of artists she once admired. This exploration felt like a window swinging open, promising fresh air and light. Each discovery filled her with determination, the kind that pushes someone to act despite their fears. As she studied an exhibit opening later that week, her heart raced with the possibility of showcasing her own work one day. A mix of excitement and dread coiled in her stomach. What would it take to create something worthy of public display? She wanted to paint not just to hide, but to share fragments of her soul with others, to connect in a way that felt truly authentic. Yet doubts swirled at the edges of her enthusiasm. What if her creations were poorly received? What if she failed to express what lay within? Those what-ifs taunted her thought process, echoing like a symphony of self-sabotage. But standing firmly in that cafe, witnessing the hustle and bustle of creative types, she remembered her earlier epiphany. Every artist grapples with self-doubt. It was a rite of passage, not a sentence of failure. Compelled by this new perspective, Mary made a decision. She would commit to attending one of the exhibition openings, even if it made her heart pound. It would be an opportunity to observe, absorb, and engage with others who shared her passions. Opening the world of art was a step toward opening herself. With a surge of courage, she jotted down the gallery address and details for the day of the show. As she finished and closed her notebook, her heart was light, buzzing with adrenaline from her decision. But, paradoxically, anxiety bubbled up as well. What would happen when she saw Jake again? Would this bold step reinforce her resolve, or would it draw her back into his orbit? Leaving the cafe, she began to walk, immersing herself in the burgeoning colors of the setting sun. She thought about her life as a canvas, blank yet yearning for vibrant splashes of purpose. Each day was an invitation to transform her fears into art. Engaging with her emotions would mean weaving them into her strokes rather than evading them. Retreating to the solitude of the park, she sat on a bench, allowing urban life to flow past her while she gathered her thoughts. A growing tension settled over her. The closer the art opening approached, the more she sensed the collision of her past and her aspirations. The potential for artistic expression stood resilient, but the specter of Jake loomed larger, nagging at the edges of her resolve. As the day of the exhibition drew nearer, she could feel the air thickening around her, the weight of her decision settling heavily on her shoulders. The time for exploration and introspection had arrived, not just for art, but for confronting the narrative Jake represented in her life. Would facing him, if he reached out, lead her down a path of reconciliation, or would it jeopardize her newfound direction? With these thoughts swirling in her mind and challenges pulsating in her heart, she stood up from the bench. This was the moment of her own choosing, yet it still felt precarious. The next chapter of her journey loomed large and unknown, brimming with the potential for heartbreak or healing.
Just then, a notification vibrated through her pocket, pulling her back to reality. A message from Jake. Would she answer? With her breath hitched in her throat, she held the phone tightly, contemplating whether this interaction would cement her newfound path or unravel it entirely. Mary sat on her park bench, the vibrant colors of the sunset blurring as her phone vibrated again, the persistent ping pulling her further from the tranquil moment she craved. With a shaky breath, she glanced at the screen. Jake's name stretched across the top, temporarily eclipsing all her artistic ambitions, setting off sparks of anxiety in her chest. What did he want? Her first instinct was to sway back to the familiar comfort of their conversations, those late-night repartees that had once felt so effortless. But the stakes were different now. She could sense that she was no longer the same person who had laughed away her dreams. Ignoring the message for now, she scanned her surroundings instead. She pressed her thumb to the screen. As the words began to shape, she felt the weight of potential shift. This interaction was not the end, it was merely the beginning. Would this be the breakthrough she so desperately needed, or would it reignite the old complexities of their relationship? The moment hung suspended in her grasp, pulsing with the promise of transformation as she pressed send. And in that moment, the world around her faded, amplifying the singular reality of her choice. What awaited her on the other side of that message might be the catalyst she needed, a moment that could redefine everything. Mary stared at the screen as the 3 little dots blinked back at her, an ominous reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. Each second stretched out, thicker than molasses, filled with unanswered questions and long-suppressed emotions. What had she just unleashed? As she waited for Jake's reply, she could feel the old patterns swirl back into her consciousness: fear, dread, and the familiar crippling anxiety that seemed to cloud her vision. But she was determined. This time, she would not allow herself to retreat into the comforting shadows of inaction. Each uncomfortable moment she spent waiting was an affirmation of her resolve. The art she wanted to create demanded boldness, demanded exposure. While the urge to silence her phone, to hide once more behind her insecurities urged her forward, she resolved to lean into it. She spent a few minutes gathering her thoughts, letting the chaos revolve around her while reaching for the calm she hoped to cultivate. She decided to take a nighttime stroll through the park, the faint glow of lampposts casting gentle halos in the deepening twilight. It was an invitation to reflect. The world around her pulsed with life, and she absorbed it, feeling the rush of adrenaline that comes from embracing the unknown. The crickets serenaded her with their symphony, and the soft rustling of leaves seemed to whisper stories waiting to be told. Her notebook felt heavy against her side, a constant reminder of the transformative practice she had begun. She found a bench beneath a blooming cherry tree and sat down, its delicate petals cascading through the night air like echoes of possibilities. Opening her notebook, she turned to a blank page, ready to pour out her hopes, fears, and dreams. This session had a different energy, a determined quiet that beat like a metronome in her chest. The strokes of her pen felt liberating. She drafted a vision for the exhibition she would attend, a canvas for her expression that was worthy of being shared. Words flowed out like paint, vibrant and alive. Yet, as her thoughts deepened, so did a realization. This was more than just about her ambition as an artist. It also was about reclaiming her narrative, defining who she was separate from Jake. She wrote boldly, "Art will expose me, but what hurts can also heal." The battle was not just against rejection, it was about building resilience. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket, cutting through her moment. A surge of exhilaration swelled within her. Jake had replied. The screen lit up with his words, and though she felt a jolt of anxiety, she also felt the stirrings of courage. What was at stake now was more than a conversation. It was the initiation of an altered relationship with herself, her art, and others. Mary took a breath, her heart racing, a stark contrast to the calm she had just fostered. Could this moment define her transformation? Could what seemed like a burden turn into a stepping stone, making her stronger, more authentic? The freshly penned words tugged at her. She felt liberated yet apprehensive. Answering Jake was pivotal. This wasn't just about clearing the air, it was a crucial step in defining her newly forged identity. With renewed determination, she began typing, a response anchored in clarity and strength. "Hey Jake, thanks for reaching out. I think it's essential we chat." Each letter solidified her intentions, reinforcing the resilience burgeoning within her. As she hit send, the weight of inevitability settled in the air around her, like a lingering note in an unfinished melody. There would be no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead with Jake would be a reflection of the growth she had fought for, both far from and intimately close to her heart. Tomorrow would unveil more challenges, but in that moment, Mary felt a tide shift deep within her. Each step from that point onward would require courage, intention, and most importantly, the understanding that vulnerability is not a weakness, but rather a wellspring of strength awaiting expression. What awaited her was shrouded in uncertainty, convergence of past and future. As she rose from the bench, leaving her thoughts behind, yet carrying her newfound resolve, Mary was ready. The journey had only just begun, and the next conversation could be the very catalyst she needed for the transformation she craved. Would she find the courage to confront not just Jake, but the insecurities that had held her back all along? The dawn of a new chapter awaited, ripe with possibility. Mary stood at the threshold of change, the morning sun streaming through her kitchen window as she sipped the last remnants of her coffee. A sense of clarity enveloped her, the remnants of doubt evaporating like mist in the warm light. Today would mark not just another day, but a definitive shift into the narrative she had long sought to reclaim. After sending her message to Jake, she spent the hours planning her path forward, one that centered around herself and her passions rather than the entanglements of her past. She felt invigorated by the decision to explore art classes, each brushstroke on canvas a potential portal to her identity. Her phone had buzzed again, this time with an invitation from a local gallery to submit her artwork for a community exhibit. This was the universe acknowledging her rebirth, not as a mother, lost in chaos, but as an artist, daring to share her voice. With newfound confidence, she clicked the link, pondering not only what to submit, but how to embody this part of herself that had lain dormant for far too long. In preparation, she returned to her journal, pages filled with her aspirations and reflections, her heart eager to articulate her skilled vision. Conceiving a piece that encapsulated her journey, she committed herself to pouring every ounce of emotion, regret, and triumph onto the canvas. As the days passed, Mary devoted herself entirely to her art. She attended classes, lost herself in creation, and discovered joy in expressing layers of herself through colors and forms. Each session enhanced her skills, chiseled away insecurities, and cemented her place in the artistic community. She learned to relish imperfection, the very essence of creation, a mantra that also mirrored her evolving recognition of self-worth. One evening, while she meticulously painted swaths of color reflecting her journey, Jake reached out again. He suggested they meet once more to discuss their prior conversation. Instead of fear, she felt anticipation swell within her. Healing conversations cannot happen in isolation. She would walk into this meeting informed and firmly rooted in her identity. As she made her way to the cafe that had once been a source of anxiety, she looked at her reflection in the glass door, poised, determined, and brimming with strength. This meeting would not be about rekindling old flames. It would be about establishing boundaries and affirming her sense of self. Seated across from Jake, she felt empowered. His expression revealed uncertainty. He had seen the changes in her. "Thanks for meeting," he began, his voice hesitant. "Of course," she responded, her tone unwavering. "I believe it's crucial for us to talk about expectations going forward." As they navigated through tentative conversations and acknowledged vulnerabilities, Mary asserted her newfound voice. "I am pursuing a path not just for us, but one distinctly for me. I need to express my passions to fully grow." Every word was a building block in her affirmation of identity. She watched as understanding dawned in Jake's eyes, his posture easing slightly. She could sense he was genuinely processing her intentions, the denouement of their connection, not an ending, but a recalibration. "Mary," he said softly, "I respect that. I see you're becoming your own person." His acknowledgement buoyed her spirits, transforming any remnants of hesitation into reassurance. Each exchange solidified the reality of her growth. She was no longer tethered to the past, but confidently stepping into her future. Soon she shared her impending exhibit submission, relishing the joy in articulating her creative aspirations. As she spoke, the shadows of doubt dissipated, replaced with glowing anticipation. "I can't wait to show my journey through my art." With every conversation, every assertion, she radiated newfound self-worth and clarity. The weight she'd carried for so long, of obligations and expectations, was shedding, revealing someone who now sought true fulfillment. As they concluded their meeting,
Mary felt free, the warmth of self-acceptance wrapping around her like a cherished embrace. With a smile, she reassured Jake, "I'm truly excited for both of us where this leads." Stepping outside, she felt the sun bathe her in warmth, each breath invigorating her spirit. Mary now stood steadfast, grounded in her path of discovery. The road ahead promised not only artistry, but true self-realization. She was finally embarking on the journey she had always yearned for, the one where her canvas existed beyond boundaries set by others. Now was the moment for manifestations, where creativity and personal liberation would intertwine, painting a future filled with vibrancy and authenticity. If you've resonated with Mary's journey or found inspiration in her transformation, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support and not miss all the exclusive emotional stories that elevate personal growth. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Share your reactions and theories about Mary's journey in the comments below. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support means the world to us and fuels stories worth telling.